Strange tales, yet mirrors of human life. Hey everyone! Welcome to Encountering Chinese, Strange Tales from Liao Zhai. Today, I'm going to tell you 3 short stories. The first story is titled, The Horse in the Painting. In Linqing County, there was a young man named Zhai. Let's just call him Zhai Sheng. He was so poor that even the walls around his courtyard had fallen into disrepair, and he couldn't afford to fix them. Every morning when he woke up, he would see a horse lying in the grass near his home, its body covered in morning dew. The horse had a striking black and white coat, but its tail was rather peculiar, rough and uneven, as if it had been singed by fire. Zhai Sheng found it an eyesore and would shoo it away every time, but no matter what he did, the horse would sneak back at night. No one knew where it came from. One day, Zhai Sheng decided to visit a friend who was an official in Shaanxi, but he had no horse or carriage for the journey. Then, he saw the strange horse again, lying in the grass. Without thinking too much, he caught it, tied a bridle on it, and prepared to ride it to Shaanxi. Before leaving, he told his family, "If anyone comes looking for this horse, be sure to send word to me in Shaanxi." Little did he know, this was no ordinary horse. It ran incredibly fast. Before he knew it, he had traveled over 100 miles in a flash. That night, when he stopped to rest, he noticed that the horse barely touched its feed. This made him wonder, is this horse sick? The next day, he held the reins tightly, not daring to let it run too fast. But the horse wasn't pleased. It neighed loudly, foamed at the mouth, and stomped its hooves impatiently. Seeing that it was still full of energy, Zhai Sheng let go of the reins, allowing it to run freely. By noon, he had already reached Shaanxi. As Zhai Sheng rode into town, people couldn't stop marveling at the horse's beauty and speed. News quickly spread, and soon, the Prince of Jin sent men to offer a high price for it. However, Zhai Sheng hesitated. He was afraid the horse might have an owner and didn't want to sell it rashly. He waited for 6 months, but no one came to claim it. Feeling reassured, he finally sold the horse to the Prince of Jin for 800 taels of silver. With his newfound wealth, Zhai Sheng bought a sturdy mule for the journey home and returned to Linqing. Not long after, the Prince of Jin had an urgent matter to attend to, so he sent a military officer to ride the horse to Linqing. However, along the way, the horse mysteriously disappeared. The officer frantically searched for it and eventually tracked its trail to the home of the Zheng family, Zhai Sheng's neighbors. The officer entered the Zheng residence, looking everywhere for the horse, but no matter how hard he searched, it was nowhere to be found. Frustrated, he demanded that the Zheng family hand it over, but they were just as confused, insisting that they had never owned a horse. Unconvinced, the officer continued his search through the house. Finally, in one of the rooms, he noticed a painting hanging on the wall, a horse painted by Zhao Ziang. The horse in the painting looked incredibly lifelike, and to the officer's shock, its colors and markings were an exact match to the missing horse. Even stranger, because an incense burner had been placed nearby, part of the horse's tail in the painting had been burned, just like the strange tail of the real horse. At that moment, the officer realized the truth. The horse had been a spirit that had escaped from the painting all along. Since he had lost the prince's prized horse, the officer had no way to explain himself and was left with no choice but to file a complaint against the Zhang family at the county yamen. By this time, Cui Sheng had already made a fortune from selling the horse, living a life of luxury with tens of thousands of taels in silver. When he heard about the Zhang family's trouble, he stepped in and generously lent them money to compensate for the horse, finally settling the matter with the officer. The Zhang family was deeply grateful and regarded Cui Sheng as their greatest benefactor. Yet, they had no idea that their so-called savior was actually the very person who had sold the horse to the Prince of Jin in the first place. The second story is titled, Releasing the Butterflies. After Wang Kexing from Changshan County passed the imperial exam and became a county magistrate, he established a rather peculiar rule. Instead of fining criminals with silver, he ordered them to atone for their crimes by handing over butterflies. As a result, the county court was always filled with hundreds, even thousands, of butterflies fluttering about, looking like countless pieces of colorful silk drifting in the wind. Whenever Wang Kexing watched them, he would slap his desk and burst into hearty laughter. One night, he had a strange dream. In his dream, a beautiful woman, dressed in elegant robes, walked slowly into his room. She gazed at him and said, "You have cruelly tormented my sisters, depriving them of their freedom and leading them to die one after another. You think yourself charming and refined, but you will pay the price for this." After speaking, she turned gently, transforming into a butterfly. She circled the room a few times before flying away. The next day, Wang Kexing sat in his office, drinking alone. Suddenly, a yamen officer rushed in, panicked, and reported, "My lord, the commanding official has arrived." Wang Kexing was startled. He quickly put down his cup and hurried out to greet the officer. But in his rush, he forgot that his wife had playfully pinned a white flower in his hair this morning. The moment the commanding official saw him, his face turned red with fury. Pointing at Wang Kexing, he scolded him harshly. "You are a county magistrate, yet you appear before me in such a disgraceful manner. How dare you?" Wang Kexing, utterly embarrassed, repeatedly apologized before retreating shamefully into his inner chambers. He believed that this humiliation was a punishment for his cruel collection of butterflies. From that day on, he never again demanded criminals to offer butterflies as penance. This reminds me of another story. Yu Chongyin from Qincheng was a man of wild temperament, always coming up with bizarre ideas. While serving as a judicial officer, he once devised an outrageous stunt for the Lantern Festival. That night, he tied fireworks all over a donkey, even its head and tail were not spared. Then, leading the donkey by its reins, he marched to the prefect's residence, loudly beating a wooden clapper and shouting, "Open the gates. I have brought a fire donkey as a special gift for the prefect. Please, come and enjoy the spectacle." That night, however, the prefect was in no mood for amusement. His son had come down with a severe case of chickenpox, and he was already feeling frustrated. So he ordered his attendants to send Yu Chongyin away. But Yu Chongyin refused to leave. He stubbornly insisted that the prefect must come out and see his masterpiece. With no other choice, the prefect finally ordered the gates to be opened. The moment the gates swung open, Yu Chongyin lit the fireworks strapped to the donkey and gave its rear a firm slap. The startled animal bolted straight into the residence, setting off an explosive frenzy. Firecrackers went off in every direction with deafening bangs, sending sparks flying all around. Terrified, the donkey dashed wildly through the estate, knocking over vases and furniture. It charged through the main hall, then into the inner chambers. Wherever it went, chaos followed. Burning embers fell onto window drapes, reducing them to ashes in an instant. The entire prefect's residence was thrown into utter mayhem. Already feverish, the prefect's sick son was utterly overwhelmed by the commotion. After enduring a night of sheer terror, his condition took a drastic turn for the worse, and soon after, he passed away. Grief-stricken and furious, the prefect was consumed with hatred for Yu Chongyin. He immediately prepared to file an official complaint to the imperial court, seeking to have him punished. Realizing that he had caused a catastrophe, Yu Chongyin wasted no time in seeking help. He enlisted the support of several high-ranking officials to plead on his behalf, and he personally went to the prefect's residence to beg for forgiveness. His remorse seemed so sincere that, in the end, the prefect, reluctantly bowing to the pressure of the other officials, chose to let the matter rest. The third story is titled Male Pregnancy. The Fujian general, Yang Fu, had a beautiful young boy by his side, kept solely for his pleasure. However, one day, the boy suddenly experienced severe stomach pains, as if something inside him was moving. This torment lasted for 10 months. Then, one night, he dreamed of two celestial beings approaching his bedside with solemn expressions. Without saying a word, they opened 2 incisions on his sides and then vanished. When he woke up, his back ached terribly, but before he could process what had happened, he heard the cries of newborns. Turning his head, he was shocked to find 2 baby boys lying beside him. Clear marks of an incision remained on his ribs. In the end, Yang Fu named the boys Sky and Earth. At the conclusion of the story, the author added a commentary. He noted that this bizarre event occurred before Wu Sangui, a Ming general who later betrayed the dynasty and joined the Qing, launched his rebellion. After Wu Sangui's revolt, chaos erupted across the land. The governor of Fujian, Zhai Gong, grew suspicious of Yang Fu, suspecting him of harboring treacherous intentions. Under the guise of an official summons, he called Yang Fu to a meeting. Yang Fu's wife, a woman of great intelligence and bravery, sensed that something was amiss and warned him not to go. But Yang Fu refused to listen. With tears in her eyes, she bid him farewell. The moment she returned home, she gathered Yang Fu's officers, armed them, and had them stand ready for battle. Not long after, the dreadful news arrived. Yang Fu had indeed been killed by Zhai Gong. Upon hearing this, his wife immediately led the troops to attack Zhai Gong in vengeance. Caught off guard, Zhai Gong panicked, but his soldiers held their ground, refusing to retreat. Unable to breach the city, Yang Fu's wife had no choice but to withdraw her forces. Incredibly, after she left, Zhai Gong, concerned about appearances, dressed in full armor, gathered his troops on the city walls, waved his banners, and staged a grand victory celebration. This ridiculous display soon became a joke among the people. Years later, as the rebellion subsided, many of the rebel soldiers surrendered and were pardoned. However, Zhai himself suddenly died a mysterious and gruesome death. On his deathbed, he claimed to see Yang Fu storming into his chamber, weapon in hand, his face contorted with fury. Strangely, those around him saw it too. In the end, Zhai died of sheer terror. Alas, though Yang Fu's vengeful spirit remained formidable, his severed head could never be reattached. As for the strange incident of the boy giving birth, perhaps it was an omen of Yang Fu's tragic fate all along. Alright. That's all for today's strange tales, the horse and the painting, releasing the butterflies, and male pregnancy. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Please also encourage everyone to comment and share more. We'll see you in the next episode.